Hi, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to REM Next, Decarbonizing Data Centers and Semiconductor Supply Chain in the Age of AI. I'm Gabby Easthouse. I'm the Manager of International Certifications and Operations at the Center for Resource Solutions. And thank you all so much for joining us. REM Next is a year-round webinar series held between the Renewable Energy Market conferences. So it brings together past speakers and industry experts from both REM US and REM Asia to continue the conversation. Today, we will be sharing the latest insights, developments, and strategies driving Asia's clean energy transition from the decarbonizing data centers and semiconductor supply chains in the Age of AI panel, which took place this past April at REM Asia. I'm going to give a brief overview of the Center for Resource Solutions and also REM, and then I'll go ahead and introduce our speakers. Something that I just wanted to note first is that if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the Q&A box, not the chat box. If you put it in the Q&A box at the end of the conversation, we'll have time for the speakers to answer your questions. If we don't get to your question, we will be sending out a questionnaire later after the webinar with all the answers. All right, so I'm just going to give some background on the Center for Resource Solutions. Just hold on one moment. All right. So the Center for Resource Solutions, we are a nonprofit organization based in San Francisco, California, and we have been creating policy and market solutions to advance sustainable energy for almost 30 years now. CRS works with lawmakers and regulators to protect the integrity of the renewable energy market and provides technical expertise in regulatory proceedings. We also offer a variety of certification programs in renewable energy, carbon offsets, and renewable fuels. That's our Greenie certification program, which is the trusted global leader in voluntary markets, making it easy for businesses and individuals to purchase verified clean energy with confidence. We host 2 annual conferences where we bring together industry experts from across the renewable energy markets. So REM Asia is held in Singapore in April, and then we also host a conference in the US in the fall, and this year it will be in Washington, DC. We hope you all can join us. So here's our Singapore. It'll be April 21st to 22nd, and then Washington, DC, September 1st through 3rd. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and introduce our speakers. So we have Aymeric Condé, head of APAC for Strive by STX, the corporate decarbonization solutions team within the wide STX group. He leads the group's efforts across the region, helping corporates accelerate their climate action through innovative market-based renewable energy and low-carbon solutions tailored to the unique challenges of Asia-Pacific markets. Next, we have Kavickumar Muruganathan, who is the APAC Cloud ESG Planning Director for Microsoft. Finally, we have Dr. Mousumi Bhat, who is the Vice President of Sustainability Programs at SEMI. I'll let them come in now, and thanks so much.
All right, thank you very much, Gabby. Pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. We have an hour to talk about this hot topic. We actually talked last April in person during the panel at REM APAC in April. Everyone was essentially already, let's say, jumpy about AI and power. Now we can fast forward a few months from April to today, and it feels like that worry has totally exploded into a full-blown reality check. What we're seeing isn't just a little extra load on the grid. It's a huge structural shift, let's say, at least. For the data center folks, it's less about building big boxes. It's more about building these super power-hungry, liquid-cooled campuses and trying to lock down power deals that are just simply huge, as we've seen this in Asia-Pacific in particular. For the chip world, semiconductors, AI is showing up everywhere, not just in the new factories being built, but in the ridiculously energy-intensive processes needing to jam all this performance into those advanced chips. So with that, let's dig into how you're both dealing with this massive wave. I'd like to start with Kavickumar and ask you. Well, actually, let's start with both of you guys. Can I start by asking simple question, or since the biggest change you've seen in your world or in your sector since our last conversation in April? A new risk, a new opportunity, maybe a new constraint. I'll let Kavickumar maybe start.
Yeah, thank you, Aymeric, for the question, and thank you, Rem, for having us here, right? And I think this is a very pertinent, interesting discussion that we're going to have here today. And I think it's quite clear to see where the industry is shifting towards, right? And I think particularly two things stand out, which means increased capacity demands that would essentially place a greater emphasis or need for resources from the natural ecosystem. And generally, I think these are uh, encompassed in two streams, right? One is energy, which we all clearly know and acknowledge, to power this wave of change. And then, of course, other important material issues such as water and minerals, right? I think these are where we are seeing the significant changes or shifts in terms of resource needs. And this is growing at a really exponential rate, right? Because of perceived demand that we're seeing in the market and our need to meet that demand gap. Right? So that's where we generally see this moving, and I think the rate, suffice to say, has been unprecedented, right? I think regionally, globally, I think we're all close to the action in this part of the world. We can see what's happening, not just in Singapore, but also within ASEAN member states and the broader Asia Pacific region. So these are some of my initial thoughts on this. Thank you.
Mousumi, over to you.
Yeah, hey, Aymeric, thanks. And thanks to Rem as well for having me here. And this follow-up from me, it is good to be back to talk about this hot topic as you alluded. And yeah, I'd like to kind of echo a lot of what Kavickumar has spoken about. A couple of things, couple of trends that are clearly obvious. And this is talking about what's been happening since May, so reasonably short time frame. We've basically, climate events have become more and more prevalent in our business and our supply chain, adding to business risk. So as you can probably imagine, the runway for adaptation is getting smaller and smaller, and we're having to do mitigation, if you will. So flying the airplane and building the airplane at the same time. And several business risks, right, associated with the global warming. There's stresses on the power grid. There is grid instability as a result of global warming. Just zooming in, amongst many other things, just zooming in on the energy factors, power factors. And then an interesting one around the insurance industry and how they are responding to some of these, right? So long ago, if you think about it, we talked about stranded assets, and we actually start seeing some of those trends kicking in. And then in the space of energy, clearly the power availability issues is outstanding. And then the supply-demand mismatch, geographically, commercially, economically, all of that. And then the third topic that I would talk about is, actually I have 4 items here. The third is what Kavickumar also referred to, not directly related to energy, but definitely skirting on that is the geopolitical fragmentation, which is now leading to, geographical concentration of resources, creating like single points of failure in your supply chain. And case in point is the critical rare materials, which goes into our production process. And finally, regulations are kicking in, right? So you're kind of up against a wall. So the sooner we take action, or the sooner we're able to go into an implementation mode in the voluntary space, the better it is for our economics. So these are some things that come to mind as I think about what are some evolutions since summer or over the year.
Very interesting. Certainly the geopolitical side of things, right? I think the rare earth metals are definitely something we've seen even more in the last 6 months from our last discussion. Maybe back to you, Kavickumar, from your APAC, let's say, perspective at Microsoft, how has AI actually changed your power planning in the last 12 months, let's say? Are we talking about like a small uplift of your normal growth or a completely structural step change within your planning?
Well, I mean, we all acknowledge that there's increased interest in AI and AI related services and products, right? And I think our plans have been made with the acknowledgement that a lot of this will be customer and demand centric, which means if we get a signal from our customer that these services are warranted, it goes into our plan, right? And then we have to factor in the relevant or associated energy resource needs accordingly. And I think the risk and opportunity that AI has brought with us is that it has brought the potential to unlock more renewable energy sources, right? Which we have not seen before, and it's also happening at an unprecedented scale. The risk, of course, which Mousumi alluded to, is that you would have, incidences where, grid can be incapacitated, and not being able to support these demands, right? So we have to be very tactical, and strategic about where, we build and operate, not just from a environmental standpoint of view, but also from a social standpoint of view, right? Ensuring that we build it in a very equitable manner. We don't sort of, pick up a disproportionate amount of energy or resource requirements for the builds that we're doing. But I think Asia is just starting to ramp up on this AI journey. As you would have known, I think that most of the action around AI, and training and all happens in the US, to a certain extent in Europe. I think in Asia Pacific, I think there's a more nuanced, measured approach to AI uptake. So, our assets are all built to be primed to support this next week of school.
Interesting. Thank you for that. From maybe the semi community perspective, where is AI most visible in the emission story? Is it the new fab build-outs, process complexity, the upstream supply chain that now needs to support AI chips? How do you see that, Mousumi, in your world?
Yeah, so clearly, there's a massive, well, I'm going to speak to it from the perspective of sustainability and operations. But of course, these are all overlapping topics. There's a big push towards automation, right? When I started my career in the fabs, I'm dating myself, but 25 years ago, we would go into the fab and move our wafers around, right, ourselves. And now, fabs are completely, you do not even get into the fab, right? If you look at the fab shop floor, there's nothing there. So automation, and a lot of that is just on a macro level, from an operations level, there's clearly, a complete shift, if you will, towards automation where, machine learning and all of that goes in. But the other piece where AI plays a big, I'm talking about very generically, right? So AI ML plays a big role is in the process control, right? And optimization. So digital twin, predictive maintenance, visualization of your processes, AI-driven energy optimization for the fabs, especially in the space, in the areas of within a fab operation. It's I would say process optimization, macro operation, and then data visualization and post-processing, and analytics and predictive analytics. Those would be the three areas where I feel that there is a big presence of AI, if you will, from a manufacturing perspective.
Interesting. Or maybe like that's the optimization or efficiency, right? So, and that's a bit the tricky side of this technology, right? There's a comforting story that AI will help decarbonize everything through better optimization, right? We see a lot of talks about how AI can actually help decarbonization. The uncomfortable flip side of this is what I found recently, Jevons paradox, something that actually Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, tweeted earlier this year. The concept that actually started with this English economist, William Jevons, who observed that technological improvements that increase the efficiency of coal use led to the increased consumption of coal in a wide range of industry. He essentially argues that, contrary to common intuition, technological progress could not be relied upon reduce fuel consumption. The fact is that the more efficient and useful a technology is, the more of it we actually tend to consume. More fuel-efficient cars leads to more driving, more efficient LED lights allow people like more areas for longer, which increases the electricity used for lighting. So with that in mind, Kavickumar, how do you see that playing out with the AI workload? Are efficiency gains being swallowed by this massive demand growth? And how do you think the industry will manage this in terms of renewable energy or carbon-free procurement?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Jevons paradox is a useful sort of framing to analyze this development that we are seeing, right? And it's nothing new, right? I think we have used this analogy to assess historically all the key revolutionary milestones that have happened, right? I mean, from the fourth industrial revolution to the advent of internet, and then we had traditional data centers, right? Before we came and built, we are having this conversation about AI data centers. And we had, I mean, if we just take a step back and we looked at the same issues and challenges we were faced or confronted with when we built out traditional data centers, it was very similar to the discussions we are having today, right? So the first thing was efficiencies, optimization. How can we, ensure that, our racks are really, well utilized and are operating at a certain efficiency threshold. And come fast forward 10, 15 years forward to this date, I think we all realize that we have made tremendous efficiency gains. In fact, the clear transition from on-prem data centers to cloud has resulted in significant energy saving for corporates and the broader data center ecosystem. And I think the same intent and optimism remains with AI data centers, right? I think it is the interest of DC operators and hyperscalers like us to ensure that our efficiency gains continue to grow and are not outpaced by the increased demand, right? And I think quite interestingly, I mean, as more consumption of cloud and data-oriented services happen, it would organically spur us to unlock the next frontier of efficiency gains. So it's in the DNA, and it's in the interest of tech and DC companies to unlock more efficiencies as the scale of adoption grows. And I think that's something that we will witness this playing out within the cloud space. So every actor in the value chain is committed to that, not just us. I think that the chip makers, the semiconductor, manufacturers, the cooling service providers. I think it's in the interest of everyone to enable that to sort of keep that as the North Star for the industry. So that is our view, and I think inherently we also want to have a situation where AI is not just a solution there. We want to talk about AI for sustainability, which means how can we use AI tools to enable sustainability and enable what you called out, which are these efficiency gains in the operational processes of a data center.
I think when we see this, of course, on the semiconductor industry, right? There's incredible efficiency of one chip is getting maybe eaten alive by the fact that everyone's using them and training and running these massive models on 24/7. So the challenge isn't just about buying clean energy, it's also about buying clean energy to a demand curve that's basically going straight up, right? That's a bit the challenge. Mousumi, you've talked in the past about the footprint versus the handprint of semiconductors. Essentially chips enabling efficiency in sectors like mobility, buildings, grids, etc. How are semiconductor companies now trying to measure and communicate that handprint, especially as AI chip drive both higher demand but also higher power density? if you have an answer.
Yeah, I actually want to, talk about the rebound effect a bit more and the opportunity we see there, but
Yep.
not just from the perspective of the semiconductor manufacturing, but also ICT and the application of ICT, because the largest scope 3 in this value chain is in the use of product use. But so let me just talk about how we see this problem statement around the Jevons principle, and then the opportunity, and then what needs to happen to grab the opportunity, right? So there's actually several studies there, one by Jesse, one by GSI, one in Europe. It's called, and I'll post some of these references later if anyone's interested, but also by the World Economic Forum, where the opportunity for ICT to address global warming has been, cited to be somewhere in the order of 20% by 2030, helping us stabilize to the levels of 2015 emissions. This is on a global perspective. So when we did our paper through Semi on hand printing, we looked at the impact on society and essentially reflected that back into our sector. Now, if you look at what is our current footprint and what is it projected to be, this is the semiconductor manufacturing footprint is about half a gigaton. So, and ICT is around 1 to 2. So basically, if you put all of that together, put your error bars, you have a couple of percent. The footprint of the industry is a couple of percent compared to the overall, right? So the overall global footprint. Now, if you think about that, so it's a few percent, say 2, say 5% of the total footprint. The opportunity by 2030 that has been scoped out in some of these publications is about 20%. So, but what are we doing about that, right? And like you said, the 3 key areas that some of these publications talk about where these opportunities exist or where we can leverage the most out of ICT handprints are energy, materials, and mobility. All 3 of it is within our sector, various sectors within the society, the hard to abate sector. So there is that huge opportunity of about 20%, but the current, and then migrating on to the last part, like where is the gap and what do we need to do? The current pledges and commitments, only bring us up to about 7.5%, bridging about 7.5% of the total opportunity that exists. So some of these publications talk about the acceleration that is needed, the different scenarios, and what they would yield in terms of us being able to bridge the gap that we have today. So to summarize, despite the fact that we have power-hungry operations, despite the fact that we have a rebound effect and the footprint from our data centers are growing, the opportunity for providing climate solutions is far larger than the footprint. So we call that the handprint. And we did a public paper together with MIT on this. But the reality is that we're not leveraging on that opportunity. And what needs to happen from here on is that we harvest that that opportunity that exists in order to bridge the gap. Hope that answers your question.
No, it does. I think it's interesting. What maybe at this point in time, I think maybe going back to kind of the regional aspect of APAC and renewable energy, maybe to the both of you from an APAC grid perspective, are hyperscaler or data centers and new semiconductors fabs being treated as quote unquote problems for grid stability? Or are we talking about mostly a strategic partner that can actually help finance renewable storage and flexibility in those grids? What kind of partnerships models are you seeing on the grounds in APAC?
I guess that's to me or Mousumi.
You
Both,
go first.
but go ahead. You can start.
Yeah. Sure. So, yeah. So I think, I mean, given the scale of how data centers are being built and operated, I think we are part of the solution. And I think, at least for Microsoft, we are committed to work with regional grid operators to ensure grid stability and grid resilience for the longer term. And to that extent, that also requires a certain political will from the governments in this region. And many a times we talk about generation, right, and potentially to a large extent of storage, but equally transmission and distribution is a vital aspect of that narrative. And unfortunately, we don't have much attention paid to it. So, investments into renewable energy, we read about it all the time, but, you seldom are faced with narratives about investment into grid uh, upheaval or retrofits or modification. And typically, I mean, in many countries, I mean, to get that done, it takes eons, right? I mean, you're talking about years, right, to execute that, 10, 12 years. And by that time, that wave of technology, that waves of technology shift would have increased exponentially, right? So we will be talking about something else at that point of time. So the question here is, how should we expedite, with renewals and with rectification in that sense. And the private sector is willing to support and contribute to those discussions. But I think the challenge is always that, hey, how do we ensure that we are also on the same page with policymakers and regulators on this. And one of the things for Asia Pacific is that I think we lack the know-how and talent to actualize and mobilize this, right? When we talk about grids, how do we do this, right? How do we, rethink our strategy on grids? How do we enhance capacity in those sort of things, right? So I think that's where we have to pay a bit more attention. And I think the unique nature of Asia Pacific, right? I mean, we've got, countries which have islands and island states in that sense. So, Indonesia is an example, right? So how do we build or bridge grid connectivity across these small islands as well, right? I mean, these are things that we need to think about strategically for the long term, right? And as I said, okay, we may not need massive investments into these things, right? With technology, there are possibilities where some small interventions can help us to enable this change at scale, right? So I give an example, right, where we have this collaboration with this organization called Solar Vision in the UK, and they use this interesting AI technology where they actually have camera monitors hooked onto grid transmission lines, right? And these camera monitors actually, detect the movements or the contractions of these transmission lines. And what they do is that with these contractions, you're able to assess how much of electricity that you can actually push through these grid lines. So we have been able to optimize to a large extent, I think about 50 to 60% greater grid optimization with such minute or minor technological interventions. So it's not just about wholesale upfront investments to overhaul the system. Sometimes it just takes technical interventions, and AI has a strong role to play, right? And as I alluded to, this case is just an example, and you can just do a transfer or transition of that to use cases in Asia Pacific as
well. Interesting. On your end, Mousumi, what do you see with the semis? I mean, I think you've been quite an activist, let's say, with policymakers in some of the region in APAC across grid stability, etc. What do you see on the semi association side?
Yeah, so I'll talk more about the partnerships or the instruments that help to bring the solutions to bear, right? This is a problem well beyond a company, any particular company or any particular association. These are global problems to be solved. But I just want to first reinforce on what Kavickumar just talked about the the sector, the semiconductor and the tech sector, being a leader in this space. Like if you look at any of these reports on the different sectors and their decarbonization intent, this is the sector that has the most aggressive goals and intent. This is also the sector that brings the investment to the table, is able to, and is bringing the investment to the table. There are enough reports that talk about how aggressively there has been investment from the companies within our cohort, the private sector within our cohort. And finally, what Kavickumar talked about, technological solutions, simple ones and difficult ones. And there's a huge opportunity and several low-hanging fruit in the space of preventing leakage, matching demand and supply, and just potentially simple solutions that companies like Microsoft bring to the table. So I see three key drivers or attributes from within this sector, which makes us, preferred candidates to be able to lead this journey, if you will. So that's one piece of it, right? So we have to recognize that opportunity, that opportunity that exists just within our sector. The second part is, like I said, it's not a one sector problem. It is beyond the sector. It involves the energy sector. In addition, it also involves local policies, regional policies. And from within SEMI, back in COP28 in Dubai, we launched the Energy Collaborative, which was a focus group of semiconductor and tech companies, leaders within the sector, signing up to the intent of driving decarbonization and power sources. And as part of that, SEMI has been supporting advocacy with policymakers in the region. In that particular, the focus has been in APAC because that's where the biggest challenge is. And these are very fruitful sessions where the policymakers don't have to do a one-on-one conversation with the different companies, but they hear the collective voice of the private sector, and it clearly leads that collective weight, the collective impetus for them to act on, in addition to the fact that they do become, the technologies that our companies bring to the table become available to those government bodies to put into action. So yeah, there is a pretty decent and effective platform, and we've already started seeing some impact of those conversations that have been on for the last year and a half. Yeah, so basically partnerships, collaborations across the aisle are important factors to making some of this happen.
And in those conversations, maybe one thing that, of course, that the industry noticed is the kind of the change of definition of what renewable really is, right? We talk about carbon-free energy. We see the big tech kind of, and even governments globally kind of kicking the tires on nuclear or all the kind of options out there. When you think about APAC, and again, this is maybe a question for Kavickumar as well, specifically in APAC, which of those new technology do you see as relevant for the next 10 to 15 years? I think we talk about nuclear a lot in the US and maybe a bit in Europe, but is this something, is those type of new technology, those carbon-free technology, likely to play a major role in Asia Pacific as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Aymeric. I think to your point, I think the conversations on nuclear has become more nuanced over the last couple of months, right? I think we are increasingly moving away from a broad, high-level perspective of just renewable energy, right? I think now the narrative has clearly shifted towards unlocking carbon-free electricity, right? And I think that's also our ambition towards 2030. And I think for that to happen, I think we need different levers to move in the same direction. And that is why, as Mousumi alluded to, that sort of collaboration, deeper collaboration, and innovative financing mechanisms have to come to fruition. And I think to your other question, I think generally, given the pace of growth of the industry, and I think specifically for us, I think we are agnostic in terms of the technologies that we are using or adopting, right? So I think, to your point, even on nuclear, I think we all acknowledge that nuclear is the cleanest form of energy, and unlocking that would go a long way in supporting our carbon-free electricity emissions. But my honest opinion is Asia Pacific is at present not ready for that. I don't think the US and the EU would have to would be taking a more strategic lead on that in the next couple of years. And yeah, beyond that, I mean, we have to be innovative. We need to look at other alternatives where we can potentially even capture and store carbon on site. Perhaps CCUS is a possibility. And then, of course, I think the industry's always been talking about things like, ammonia, biomethane, hydrogen, and all this. And all this needs to be curated and built at scale, right? I think that's the most important thing for use, right? And I think in recent times, there has been some murmur of on-site generation. So which means that data centers which are built will have a minute portion of the energy generated on site. But in all honesty, that will not be sufficient for the entire energy budget of a DC, right? So I think these are things that have been popping up over the last couple of of years and months, and I think we will continue to see more technological innovations that we may be sort of forced to use as well to decarbonize at scale.
Very good. Mousumi, on your end, do you see the semiconductors also following through and kind of looking at other technologies, or let's say carbon-free, low carbon energies?
Look,
Outside
we
of the
don't
renewable
really have a
energy?
position as a public sector. I don't believe we have a position in one or the other. Our purpose is to serve our members and bring about resilience in the industry, in the sector, in the supply chain, and energy security being extremely important. There's a huge opportunity around getting the most out of renewable energy, right? So if you look at 2030 as the timeline and keep that in mind, it becomes critical to work smart towards that goal. So for sure, as like we had that conversation earlier, which is low-hanging fruit, technologies that will help us extract 20 to 30% and from the grid, from grid losses, electrification, all of that. Like the idea would be, the position would be, let's go do that, because 2030 is only 5 years away, 4 years away, starting next year. We're going to have to focus on getting those done. And then whatever is the balance, we would probably look at the longer poles and on the technology front. So specifically on nuclear, if we are restarting existing nuclear plants, then they probably have a chance in being able to deliver something by 2030. But other than that, most solutions will be well outside that. So I think it behooves us to look harder, dig deeper, find those low-hanging fruit in the existing spaces, grid connectivity across the region, grid connectivity across borders in Southeast Asia. There are so many solutions that can be implemented much faster than some of the technological solutions we're looking at. But, if the technologies we're looking at come through massive investments in that time frame, so be it.
Fair enough. That makes sense. Maybe we can shift over to, let's say, because we talked all about procurement of renewable energy, or carbon. This is obviously mostly your scope 2, right? But if we look beyond, let's say, the operational emissions, we obviously can talk about scope 3, and that's really where the action really happens as well. And understanding a bit the pressure from, let's say, the big technology companies actually changing sourcing decisions for suppliers right here in APAC. Interesting to understand a bit maybe your supplier engagement model over at Microsoft across APAC, and the expectations that maybe you place on key suppliers How do you monitor them, the progress, and kind of what form of support maybe you provide to, or incentives you provide to them, beyond simply maybe just asking for disclosure?
Absolutely. So I think to your point, Aymeric, I think I mean, as much as we are focused on the operational emissions of Scope 2, I think we need to really work on our Scope 3 emissions, and generally that's embodied emissions. And to give you a perspective of things, I mean, 96 or 97% of our emissions lies in our value chain, which is Scope 3, right? Which really points to the daunting challenge that we have ahead ourselves to really mobilize our supply chain to decarbonize at scale. So some of the things that we've done generally are, engaging supply chain a bit more strategically and deeply. So as a caveat and as a first step, generally, in our supplier code of conduct, we get all our suppliers to really commit and support or lend support to our carbon, or rather sustainability ambitions towards 2030. And just last year, I think we've taken an additional step where we've really piloted with a select few suppliers to support us on our journey of carbon-free electricity. So really committing to carbon-free electricity, because if they're able to do that in the Scope 1 and 2, that will be reflected in our Scope 3 emissions, and that emissions footprint will really come down quite significantly. So that's an ongoing process, right? We have really identified, a few suppliers who are really aligned with our vision, and really on board with working or collaborating with us to enable Scope 3 emission reduction. And what's interesting is also the fact that we are really working already prioritizing the semiconductor industry, right, where we see a lot of potential, right, where if our semiconductor suppliers are able to pivot to carbon-free electricity, that would really bring massive shifts in our emissions portfolio. So that's a process that we are really undertaking. The other aspect is also trying to work with some of our suppliers in the bill material side of things, right? Because as you know, data centers are infrastructures, right? That require a decent carbon footprint, right? So some of it will be concrete blocks. Some of them are sort of being made with steel, with copper and other reinforcements, right? And so we are trying to work to really unlock, low embodied carbon construction materials. And so we have had, a lot of collaboration with partners like Climeworks to really unlock, low carbon cement, for instance, that can really reduce the embodied carbon footprint of data centers at scale. And we also continue to really optimize our climate innovation fund. We've really set aside $1 billion to invest in leading startups or corporates who have the potential to, or who have the solutions on hand to decarbonize at scale. So right now, as we speak, I think we've really done quite a bit of work in green steel, and now we are looking at green copper. So this is an important area. Asia Pacific, I think generally, the focus has been on operational carbon, but over time, within the next 5 years, I think we also increasingly need to pivot the discussion to be a bit more holistic, and also address the embodied carbon footprint of data centers, where that's the real challenge, right? How do we get low embodied carbon products in at scale that can really bring down our Scope 3 emissions?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for that. I guess on a spend basis, I guess semiconductor is certainly a supplier where lots of emissions are coming from. Do you feel that on the semiconductor sector, Mousumi, that pressure from big buyers of decarbonizing their chips manufacturing?
Yeah. I mean, there's, I mean, clearly that's the narrative, right? Bulk of emissions for the end user comes in from upstream materials. Out of those, a large fraction of it is from the manufacturing factories, and then further upstream from materials. So Kavickumar put it well. There are two hard to abate sectors within there. One is the materials, green materials, everything that goes into mining, into extraction of the silicon wafers. Silicon wafers are a big part of it, as well as infrastructure materials. So that's a big chunk of it, and then the other part of it is in the operations in a factory that is very much very energy, water, just overall resource intensive. So no question there. And then from within a consortium perspective, we see the trend that has happened now is it's more like, okay, we've got a plan of action for our scope 2. How can we work with our supply chain to decarbonize the supply chain? And our consortium basically spans the entire value chain. So we're actually solving these problems together. And then many of you are probably aware of this. In December, we are in December. Sorry, we are in December. It's the end of the year. Next week, we are hosting the Global Executive Summit on Sustainability in Tokyo, which is sponsored by the end user for our supply chain and the whole ecosystem, where we will be doing more deep dive on execution. So clearly a problem across the supply chain and heavy lift outstanding on the upstream materials as well as operations.
Very good. Definitely not something easy to tackle. Let's move maybe next few minutes to the audience. We have a few questions here. So I'll start with the first one, maybe for both actually, Kavickumar and Mousumi. Do you see a shift from using REX to instead moving towards a direct procurement of renewable energy or on-site like a PPA?
I think, Kavickumar, maybe you should take this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we have really signaled our intent to be really much focused on PPAs, and I think generally that is also aligned with our interest to be carbon negative by 2030, right? I think we have had in the past included unbundled RECs in our scope 2 sort of decarbonization strategy. But I think the last 6 months, just to enable more directional support towards our ambition to be carbon free, or rather be using carbon free electricity by 2030, we have really signaled our intent to really pursue PPAs in that sense.
I'll pass on that,
Mousumi,
Aymeric.
Okay, no problem. And we have another question. I think that question has been asked earlier on, but I think we've probably tackled it. It's a two-phase question. Given the challenges in accessing affordable renewable energy in APAC, what are data centers and semiconductors doing to further decarbonize supply chain beyond renewables? I think we've tackled that a bit. But that second part of the question are mostly about our players in the sector investing in carbon credits to offset residual emissions.
Yeah, my short answer would be all of the above within the regulatory boundaries. So yes, we're so far behind in terms of being on the 1.5 degree pathway that we really have to reach out for anything and everything that's there. So there's a ton of investment going on in the space of sustainability. Of course, for residual emissions, there is a limitation and it's a finite amount, but but where the sector is focusing is in direct emissions reduction. And there's a ton of investment going on in that space. But whatever is available to us in the form of residual emissions and offsets would be fine as well.
On to the next
if I could
one.
just add on to that, I think just very quickly, I think our focus has always been reducing our resource use. In cases where we've done that, then it's about optimizing it. And then, of course, as Mousumi alluded to, there will be residual emissions that we need credits to offset. So I think, at least for Microsoft, we are committed to the voluntary carbon market because there's just been a lot of work that has happened over the last 15, 20 odd years. And, we really focused on a science-based approach to unlocking more credit and signaling demand for credit in this voluntary market.
Yeah, and I think we've seen quite a few headlines of Microsoft being an off-taker in all of those, let's say, new removal type of technology, which again is really much required to get this market moving. On to the next question. Can you talk a bit more about the logic behind why Microsoft chose to set the goal of transitioning its supply chain to clean energy.
Sorry, could you just repeat that question, please? I got that.
Yeah, can you talk a bit more about the logic behind why Microsoft chose to set the goal of transitioning its supply chain to clean energy?
Well, I think this answer was really the question. The answer to this question was captured in some of the initial discussion. But I think we need our value chain to support our ambitions. Right? I mean, as I said, bulk of our emissions resides in our scope 3, right? If we can work in a very targeted manner and a strategic manner to really unlock decarbonization at scale, then supply chain has to support that, right? And that's why we are working with a few strategic semiconductor suppliers to really enable that, because those emission savings will then be passed on into our accounting and books, right? So that is the idea behind it, right? And I think it's in the interest of the broader ecosystem to decarbonize as well, right? Because of what's at stake, right? Which is the climate, right? And of course, we are also seeing increased regulatory pressure from a disclosure perspective. So yeah, our suppliers also face the same pressures that we do in the jurisdictions that we operate. So we are really aligned on that journey, and transitioning to clean energy is no longer good to have in some markets. It's a must have, and it's also a complete factor when you work with some of your top tier customers.
Very good. I think we can move to the essentially one last question, and mostly geared to you, Kavickumar. Bear with me; it's a bit long. So, as we think about retrofitting existing grid infrastructure and expediting new grid build out, is there a healthy level of lead time we should maintain before implementation? Especially as AI technology evolves and energy efficiency are unlocked, how are experts balancing pressure for a timely return on investment with thoughtful planning and implementation? What type of coalitions are forming to kind of innovate in that space?
Yeah, I think there are many parts to this question, right? But I just generally think that I think we are being tactical and strategic. I think there's a lot of planning that goes into deciding which markets that we want to build out, right? And that means, and also that also alludes to the fact as to why certain markets are not feasible for us to set our operations, right? And one of the things, or the most critical factors, is energy and grid infrastructure, right? So that's very important. And I think the most important thing is also land availability. But the greater challenge is also latency for us, right? We can't afford to build in regions where there's no customer demand, right? So today, customers demand, a certain degree of latency, right? Which means, high speed, ultra high speed connectivity and information transition. So this trilemma that we have is to really be situated as close as possible to our customers, right? Some of you would have known of this concept of edge data centers, or something along those lines. So that's the first factor. The second factor would be having a stable power connection, and the third is land availability. So all of this three has to come together. So imagine this triangulation that needs to happen every time we decide to execute. So it's months of planning, months of negotiating, months of due diligence, months of sizing that opportunity before we get there, right? So in terms of lead time, yeah, I mean, this is something that is always evolving, right? And sometimes build outs don't go according to time plans because of the fact that there are other regional complexities. For example, securing permits. In some markets, it takes months to secure certain permits before you can move on to the next stage of build out of implementation. And these creates a lot of lag and delays, right? Which also eats into the project budget, right? So there are multiple facets that that we have to look at. And I think when you talk about technology evolution and energy efficiencies, I think efficiencies are particularly gained for us as a DC operator when there's greater utilization, right? So when DCs are utilized at a certain degree, efficiencies really kick in, and that's where we are pushed to also unlock greater savings or energy savings. And this is not just within our interest, right? It's in the interest of the value chain. So we work with our suppliers to see where we can really get these efficiencies, and this is an ongoing conversation, right? So it does not stop when we have hit a certain threshold level, right? We always, and as I said previously, we are in the space where we are motivated, and it's in our need to really enable that sort of innovation to continue or prosper, right? And that's where our right to operate or license to exist for tech companies exists, right? So that's key. And then on your last question, correlations, right? I think increasingly we are seeing a lot of correlations coming together to address these needs, right? I think in Asia Pacific itself, we have the Asia Pacific Data Center Association that was implemented, and they are coming together. And then we also see other in-country associations that are popping up to address this. I think the most recent one was in Australia, where they've established the Data Center Australia Industry Coalition, really bring industry voices together to be unified in terms of bringing their thoughts and voices across to policymakers and other stakeholders, right? So it's a space where we are seeing a lot of alignment as we speak.
Thank you so much. We're just going to conclude with that last question. I just wanted to thank our speakers so much for taking the time and continuing this important conversation. We hope that you join us for our next REM Next webinar, which will be held in early February. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speak soon.